Well, the 2024 Oscar nominations have been announced, and raise your hand if you're upset. Not to discount any of the well-deserved performances that got a nom, Coleman Domingo, I'm looking at you, but so many of my favorites didn't get recognized this year, and someone's got to talk about it, and that person is me. I'm Louis Fertel, and this is Trophy Strife, the only show that focuses on Oscar losers. Today I'm going through the worst snubs of the 2024 acting nominations, and as an Oscars historian, I'll provide boundless historical context because those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. That was Greta Gerwig. And as a special treat, I'll be announcing the 2024 Snub of the Year, which is a new thing I invented. So stay tuned until the end to see who it is. I'm sure you already know who it is if you've paid attention to me for even 1 nanosecond. Let's start with the supporting actress snubs. Danielle Deadwyler for The Piano Lesson. If you've been following Danielle Deadwyler's career, it's really accelerated in the past couple years. She gave a dynamite performance in Till in 2022, which was snubbed. She was in The Harder They Fall in 2021. She was amazing in that movie Carry On, which was about getting into fights at the airport. What? How can you be amazing in that? And yet she was. This year, she was in Netflix's adaptation of August Wilson's The Piano Lesson. Danielle Deadwyler plays Bernice, who has a piano she's unwilling to sell. Her brother, played by John David Washington, wants to sell it. There's a lot of conflict there. There's a lot of family history that becomes unfurled. It's uncomfortable. Like in any great play, there's a lot of family tension that bubbles over at the end in a really unexpected way. Now, in the original play version, there are supernatural elements that are really spooky and really take the audience by surprise. In the movie version, I feel like a little of that magic is lost, but none of the mastery of the performances was lost, namely thanks to Danielle Deadwyler. Because this is a play, there's a lot of obligatory dialogue that sets up the drama of this show, but Danielle Deadwyler makes even the most obligatory lines compelling. There's something about the way she is constantly looking around. There's an alertness about her that is really compelling and also not strained. You don't feel like you're watching someone in the middle of a play. You feel like you're watching someone in the middle of their tough life. Now, you may be saying, Louis, Danielle Deadwyler's a great actress, but these 5 people who were nominated for Best Supporting Actress were great too. Who would you snub out? Well, don't worry, I thought about this. I'm going to start with the otherwise great Isabella Rossellini in the movie Conclave. Or was she in the movie Conclave? I didn't bring a stopwatch to the theater, but she could not have been in that movie for more than 2 seconds. Isabella Rossellini, an acting legend who comes from an acting dynasty. Her mother is Ingrid Bergman, her father is the fabulous director Roberto Rossellini, and she also was in David Lynch movies, and we've been thinking about those lately. She was in Blue Velvet, she was in Wild at Heart. You probably know her from her seductive and potion-wielding performance in Death Becomes Her. Still unmatched. But her role in Conclave basically amounts to one, I'll call it half monologue, where she reads the room for filth and then exits the movie. Now, I will say, this is a very 1936 Best Supporting Actress nomination, where you'd have someone like Maria Ouspenskaya get in her wheelchair at age 175, wheel into the movie, say something spooky, and then leave, and then we'd say, you're nominated. But honestly, things have changed, and now most supporting players get 7 or 8 scenes in a movie, a lot to do, an arc to play, and there's a lot more to reward. This just feels like too slight a role. This role is also a definitive example of what I call TOASC, T-O-W-A-S-C, which stands for There's One Woman and She's Concerned. The movie wants to be about all men, but they stick in one woman to be extra concerned and remind us that the men really matter. I'm talking about you, Meryl Streep in The Deer Hunter. I'm talking about you, Claire Foy in First Man. And sometimes we even give these people the win, Kim Basinger in LA Confidential. Which brings me to my next snub in the Best Supporting Actress category, Ingenue Ellis Taylor for Nickel Boys. First of all, I just want to voice my enthusiastic support for the fact that Nickel Boys got a Best Picture nomination. That was a surprise to me. Next, I want to voice my contempt for Ingenue Ellis Taylor never being a serious part of this conversation. Nickel Boys is a bewitching movie. The POV of the movie, as in the eyes the camera sees through, are the 2 main characters, and Ingenue Ellis Taylor is the mother of one of them. This is an unbelievably brutal movie that needs a lot of heart in order for us to get through it, and Ingenue Ellis Taylor provides that. If you're unfamiliar with her work, please read a book, do anything with your life. But first of all, she was in the movie Ray in 2005, she was in Lovecraft Country, and she was amazing in the movie King Richard, where she played Oracene Taylor, the mother of Venus and Serena Williams. And then she really outdid herself in the movie Origin, Ava DuVernay's kind of free-form, intellectual, and yet very emotional family drama from 2023. All I'll say is she gives a character a hug in this movie, and it's got to be the best hug in movies since we gave Helena Bonham Carter an entire nomination in The King's Speech. Now you may say, okay, Louis, Ingenue Ellis Taylor's a wonderful actress, but who else are we going to sub out? And the answer is Monica Barbaro. A Complete Unknown is a really good biopic, a better than average biopic. That's about how People claimed they wanted this folk hero in Bob Dylan, and the minute he was actually inspired by something and changed the sound of his music to follow the muse, people abandoned him. Monica Barbaro plays Joan Baez. She also performs my favorite Joan Baez cover of a Bob Dylan penned song, which is Farewell Angelina. She does a fabulous job with that. So I would sub out Isabella Rossellini for Danielle Deadweiler, and I would sub out Monica Barbaro for Ingenue Ellis-Taylor. Let me add this about Best Supporting Actress. I do think category fraud is a disease and it catches on quickly, like Dutch Elm. Zoe Saldana is the frontrunner in this category thanks to her performance in Amelia Perez, and I don't think there's an argument she's supporting at all. I can't even imagine you saying it. She is the person who runs the action in this movie, and every crazy thing in the movie happens to her. That said, I'm somebody who judges category fraud before we get to the nominations, and once those are set, I judge it based on the merits of the performance, and as such, I would give the Oscar to Zoe Saldana. Let's move into Best Actress snubs, where there are some really notable omissions. Angelina Jolie came out of the secret cocoon she lives in to be in Maria, give a really dignified and sometimes very funny performance as Maria Callas. This disappointed people because Pablo Larraín's last two lady-centric films, Spencer with Kristen Stewart and Jackie with Natalie Portman, both scored Best Actress nominations. But truthfully, I think the movie Maria felt more like a 90-minute De Beers commercial than a true conduit for the power Angelina Jolie can bring to the screen. Pamela Anderson did score a SAG nomination and a Golden Globe nomination for The Last Showgirl, a low-key but kind of impressive, kind of a vibe movie. Did I think she belonged in the final five? Not necessarily, but it would have been an interesting inclusion. But the real omission in this category to me is Nicole Kidman in Baby Girl.
I want to be the baby girl.
I'm not saying this is an incredibly deep affair movie. I would say that Unfaithful with Diane Lane and Damage with Jeremy Irons and Juliette Binoche go a lot harder in this genre, but I can't think of too many mainstream movies that give a 50-something woman depth to her sexuality and depth to her frustrations, and Nicole Kidman acts this out fabulously. This movie would have no reason to exist if Nicole Kidman weren't in it. Now, as for who I'd sub out, I'm not the hugest fan of Demi Moore as a starring performance in The Substance. Not that she wasn't good in it. I thought she had one very charismatic scene in front of a mirror, and I really thought the direction was the star of that movie, not really any one particular performance. I thought a really awesome horror performance from this year was Hunter Schafer in Cuckoo. And let me just say, this movie disturbed me and I did not like it and I did not want to be there, but she brought her own sort of dejected energy, and I love that in a horror protagonist. But truthfully, who I'd sub out in this category, Cynthia Erivo in Wicked. I think this movie ends somewhat triumphantly for her. She obviously gets literally a huge note, but I thought the first part of this movie was kind of conducted in a murmur. I was sort of leaning in, waiting for her character to happen. And let's be real, we all know Wicked Part 2 is where Elphaba shines, so I'm waiting for that nomination to take us all by storm. I also don't hate the idea of subbing out Carla Sofia Gascon because as Zoe Saldana is the true lead of this movie, Carla almost feels like, I don't want to say a supporting character, but not quite the lead. So it doesn't feel like she has as much presence as these other nominees. But among these five, I can't imagine rooting against Fernanda Torres in I'm Still Here. What a triumph of a movie. If you haven't seen I'm Still Here, it's a fabulous movie. I'm so psyched to see it in the Best Picture category too. It's about a real-life activist whose husband disappears and about how she goes on and her family's life goes on, and it just is filled with hope and not in a sappy way. Fernanda Torres, of course, comes from an acting dynasty. She is the first Brazilian actress nominee in the Best Actress category since her own mother, Fernanda Montenegro, was nominated in 1998 for the unmissable movie Central Station. She's also in I'm Still Here, playing her daughter's character at an advanced age. Out legally, there's an equal time clause on this video, so I must talk about the men now. Honestly, a pretty good lineup. I think only Coleman Domingo is giving a career best performance among these nominees, with Adrian Brody a close second. That said, I am rooting for Adrian Brody to win for The Brutalist. I thought the plight of his character in this strange, expansive world was really moving and, moreover, really strange, namely for a movie that's in the Oscars conversation. I think Sebastian Stan is a sleeper contender here. Nobody is talking about the fact that not only is he nominated for playing the sitting U.S. president, he's nominated for playing the sitting U.S. president in a movie where he rapes his wife. If I had to sub out anybody here, I might say Ralph Fiennes in Conclave, since I didn't think the movie was about anything other than, did you know cardinals could be gossipy? And the answer is yes, I knew that. If I had to sub him out for somebody, it would probably be Daniel Craig in Queer, playing a character that is, I can't say likable or understandable or relatable in any single way, but his journey is cool to see, and the weatheredness, a word I'm coining right now, of the character is unforgettable. Best Supporting Actor, no real surprises here, other than maybe Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice, though honestly, that's the kind of supporting performance that we usually get in this category. A villain character who's really bold, who's really frightening. Think of Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men, hell, Heath Ledger winning for The Dark Knight, Christoph Waltz in Inglourious Bastards, the nefarious, mustache-twirling Best Supporting Actor winners go on and on. The frontrunner here is Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain. Now, I think this could be considered upsetting for a couple reasons. For one thing, he is definitively, to me, the lead of this movie. Not only is he one half of the two-hander duo at the center of this movie with Jesse Eisenberg, but every time he is off screen, the movie is still about him. We're still talking about his character, his quirks, why he's so agitating, or why he's so surprisingly endearing. At no point in this movie are we not solving this character, so he's centralized in every way possible. And I have to say, something is kind of grating about the fact that he is sure to win for playing an irascible character whose pain comes to the fore in the final act, and we cherish him for having all this dimension ultimately, even though it seems like we could never like him at first, because this leads into the biggest snub of the year, Marianne Jean-Baptiste in Hard Truths playing a character who has the same issue. Now, before I get into Marianne, which should be no surprise if you listen to my podcast, Keep It, where she was an amazing guest, I want to remind you that Keep It is a weekly podcast, and you can find it here on this channel. My co-host, Ira Madison III, and I did a full deep dive into all the nominations, and we'll continue to cover the Oscars all season, so make sure to click subscribe. But anyway, back to the snubs, and I mean the snub. My 2024 snub of the year, Marianne Jean-Baptiste in Hard Truths. Hard Truths is a really simple movie. This woman starts fights wherever she goes. She has not a single pleasant moment in her otherwise very simple life. That's all the movie presents to us. We're trying to figure her out. We go along with her. It's a tough journey. It's sometimes really funny, and sometimes it's really funny and then turns into really tragic, surprisingly. I've never really seen an arc like this in a movie. When the movie begins, you think you're meeting a sardonic grouch who will solve all her problems by the end of the movie. But as you go through, you realize the movie isn't offering easy solutions to explaining why she is the way she is, and it doesn't really seek to resolve her either. We simply watch her destruction sort of wreak havoc on the people around her silently. They often don't object to how she treats her, and we're wondering why? Why can't any of you say something? But you're just in this dynamic, this family that has a problem and lives in that problem. If you read New York Times writer Kyle Buchanan's recap of the Oscar nominations, he talks about how when he met with Oscar voters, they said they didn't like the character of Pansy she played in this movie, and he was specifically talking about male voters. The truth of the matter is, when I watch this movie, I'm not concerned with whether I like the character. I'm simply compelled by the character. I feel like that judgment of saying I don't like this woman or it makes me uncomfortable, whatever, should be irrelevant, and yet was the deciding factor in why she didn't get a nomination. And again, all of her objectionable qualities, quote unquote, seem to be the ones that are winning about the Kieran Culkin character. She's allegedly unlikable, she's curt, she does poorly in social situations, she ruins people's day, she's funny but at other people's expense. These are qualities that also pertain to Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, and he's the frontrunner to win that category. And yet here, it's like we're talking about an alien species we don't want to address. I don't know why voters only have the gumption to say one of these performances is impressive and the other one shouldn't even be acknowledged. Luckily, Marianne Jean-Baptiste was nominated for the BAFTAs, as it is a British film. And I'm also excited to see Saoirse Ronan in The Outrun in that lineup. There was no discussion of this movie this year, and I think she gives a towering performance, one of her best, and I have seen every Saoirse Ronan performance. I am not saying this glibly. So not only did I love the movie Hard Truths, we're also living in one of the hard truths. You know what I'm saying? Thanks for watching Trophy Strife. Please comment below any grievances you have with this year's nominations. You heard mine. Or tell me I'm wrong. I don't care. It's all talking to me. And that's what I want to do. Talk.